All right, this week we're on the engine removal for the 67 Mustang hardtop. First thing you're going to want to do is disconnect your battery. That way you don't electrocute yourself or set anything on fire for the next few things you're going to be doing. Now, the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to take the fuel system out of this. Now what that's going to entail is, because we don't have the fuel pump hooked up on ours because we're doing a fuel system revamp, we would normally go in and take the rubber hose off of the pump itself and then come up here, because I like to take carburetors off for this kind of stuff. We're going to go in and remove our sexy little fuel line from our homemade electric pumping system. I'm going to take this off. We're already getting a little bit of drippy drips, and I'm going to move this to the outside world so that it doesn't puke all over us in here. At least that's my theory. All right, we want to make sure that we've got everything unhooked from the engine, things like ground straps and vacuum hoses and the wiring harness for the engine itself. Now, this engine has got some really weird stuff going on. It has an American Auto Wire harness, but there was a little bit of homemade tomfoolery done on some of this stuff. So he's trying to get the oil pressure sending unit unhooked from the wiring harness, and then I'll go in and unhook this humongous distributor. But the first thing I want to try to get out of here is the vacuum hose for the vacuum operated disc brakes, or the booster I should say. Of course I hit myself. Another thing you want to be mindful of on these Mustangs and early Fords is your throttle linkage here. You always want to pull that up out of the way, because a lot of times that can jump down in on the engine bay somewhere, and sure as the world it's going to snag on something. You're going to end up with an issue of it pulling something off over here and costing you tons of money. Did you get it?
Yes.
So the oil pressure sending unit on a small block Ford is on the driver's side near where the fuel pump is. All right, one of our clips is already busted on this thing.
It's that high quality plastic.
Oh yeah. And boy, are our wires really crusty in here. Okay, that should be that part of it.
See if I can get the water temperature sensor from under the gigantic distributor. Oh, maybe. Huzzah.
We're really hoping that we can get a Pertronix to put in here. I don't have a problem with this type of distributor setup. It's just that I prefer the clean look of a Pertronix style Hall effects distributor. So we'll probably try to get one of those to throw back in this thing when we go back into it, just to get this big bad boy out of here.
Right, there's the engine electrical.
And this is why you want to unhook your battery right here, because if something's running inside the car for whatever reason, and you lay that over here, you're just as likely to set it off as not. I'll pull that back over there actually, because we've got things to unhook. All right, our ground strap is attached to the exhaust manifold. You just can't make this stuff up. Hand me the half-inch out of there. I'm going to use a nut driver to take it off, hopefully. And we have a couple of grounds there. I don't have a problem with what they've done here with it going to the exhaust manifold. It's just not normal for a Ford. Ford normally grounds to the intake manifold in this case. I'm also really not too crazy about using sheet metal nuts for grounding. It's just not a good idea. This had a pretty decent ground on it, as you can see where it was eaten into it with the sheet metal screw or sheet metal nut, but not my preferred.
It's just less and less contact for that ground.
Golly, yeah. I want to put a full-size nut on there because, like Cam's saying, it gives you much more contact for your grounds.
All right, I'm going to remove the air compressor AC lines now. Got my metric left-handed adjustable wrench.
We're high-tech at it today, boy. Hate mail. Put the hate mail to him. He's the one that wanted the adjustable. Wow, that was impressive. Yeah. Wasn't it supposed to make some kind of hissing noises or something?
Not when it's empty. If it does, you probably got a raccoon under there.
That's not good. I like raccoons. They're kind of fun. Kitty doesn't like raccoons at all. Shathid doesn't like raccoons.
Right.
He even bought the high-tech Duralast one.
Yeah, fancy.
Go big or go home, buddy. All right, so what we're doing now is just taking all the hoses off that we can see from up top. We're trying to get everything on the top done. The rest of the stuff is going to pretty much be underneath the car.
That O-ring was toast.
Bye. It's gone. Well, that's probably where the Freon went.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to take some of our plugs here. We've got assortments of them. Just find some stuff that can go over these ones and cover our lines as well.
Yeah, we've done enough AC systems around here that we are bound to have at least one or two caps that we can cover them with.
And this is just to keep dirt and stuff out. You can't really keep air out of this system now that's open.
Which means we probably will need to get a new filter dryer for it.
Yes, always.
I wonder whose system this is. The other thing this will do too is when you're pulling the engine up and out of there, it's going to keep trash out of the hoses, so you don't have to worry about those getting damaged from that.
All right.
Do we want to unhook all that from this? I'm a little worried about when we pull the engine out, these could be a problem too.
Yes, they could. But we can disconnect those if they need to be. I think they'll be fine. Because we can just pop it up and pull it forward an inch.
That's true.
We're clear of that.
All right. Now what I'm doing is I'm doing cleanup. I'm trying to make sure I've got everything unhooked because you can and will miss things. For instance, when we were doing our stuff earlier, I missed the alternator nut right here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my heater hoses and cut those out. All the way out here. It's peeing. And now you know why we put polyethylene down. It's still peeing. That's even after we took everything out of it. So these two hoses are now unhooked. I'm just going to lay them back over here and make sure they're out of the way. I'm going to take these wires and disconnect them. We're probably going to make these a little bit longer and put them somewhere else because we're going to move this from here to either a possible position on the firewall or maybe even back inside the cab. A lot of times with some of these systems like the vintage air and stuff, this will actually be inside the vehicle. If we don't do that, we'll do an S-hose and we'll put it out here somewhere and then route it down the intake in a nice fashion. Not the fashion that we have here because it's pretty bad. All right, so now I'm going to take my 7/16 and remove the nut from the back of the alternator. This is a one-wire alternator, so we won't be worried about any other hookups. Now, if it was a Ford setup, there usually are plugs there for that, so you can just uncork all that. It's pretty easy to do. Dropping that wire down, making sure there's nothing else connected over here. I don't want to get that hooked up and in the way of anything. I'm going to put the nut back on the alternator. Don't drop it on the ground. I'm going to move over to here. We've already taken loose our band clamp up here and down here as well, just to be safe. And it'll come off. At least nothing puked. That was actually the zip tie that was holding the wiring harness in place on the radiator, so good times. All right, let's see, I think we're pretty much in the neighborhood if we're not in the house here. All right, so we're going to take our return line off of the ram valve down here. There is a worm clamp on it. I'm going to tell you right now that this whole system, I'm going to go over it after we get this thing drained, but this whole system is a hot mess. it's nothing like what would be on here for factory. So it makes me wonder if somebody has actually added power steering to this car in the past, because all of this is just not right. And these hoses are old and they're just stiff. I may end up just even cutting that off of there with my pocket knife. I would normally just take it loose at the clamp. You can look at this. This all moves as a unit. This whole rack assembly here, or the drag link, moves as an assembly. But when they put this together and did what they didn't bother checking to see that the hose here is actually contacting one of the tie rod end, inner tie rod end pieces here. It's just a hot mess in there. We're going to be doing all of this stuff. We'll probably go in and replace all these hoses. There's not a ton of power steering fluid in this thing because it's just been draining on our driveways outside. That's an underwhelming amount of power steering fluid coming out of there. All right, so what they've got going on here is not correct. For one thing, there's supposed to be a bracket that holds the hoses off of any of this stuff. There should be clearancing here. You have to get the correct hoses for this stuff or it's not going to work. You really should go to a place like National Parts Depot to pick those up, because they do have the correct small block hoses, and you can even now get the bracket that you need to mount this stuff to where everything sits correctly. Usually on a vintage Mustang, you'll be able to see the hoses hanging down a little bit, but it's mostly these hoses right here. These two hoses here are the ones you typically see. The other ones kind of route over the top and come out over here, I believe, somewhere. This is just all wrong. It's not the way it's supposed to be. We're going to just disconnect them for right now, and I'll obsess on that a little later maybe. I'd already pre-loosened that line, so don't panic that I've done something that, you know, it was left undone by somebody else. I'm close. All right, we're going to let those drain for a minute and come back and start working on the cooling system down on the bottom here and draining everything out of that. I want to get all these drained down, and then what we can do is it'll make it easier for us to get to the petcock and clean all that stuff off, and we'll use that tray for that as well. We'll drain this stuff that's in the tray in a bucket and then go from there.
All right, so we are going to drain the coolant next. I've got a nice little piece of cardboard here that I'm going to use as a form of funnel. I'm going to go ahead and pop the petcock loose, just so don't have to, in theory, fight it as hard. So now that it's loose, I'm just going to shove this up in here. Just to try and push some coolant towards my bucket. All right, that looks haphazardly okay. Yeah, that's stripped. All right, so we get to make a mess instead.
There we go. He peed on me.
All right, well, we will let this drain at its leisurely pace and go from there, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to take the neutral wire off the block here, but that has to come off, or you have to take it off at the battery end, and I would rather just have the cleanest to pull it out of the engine bay with this out. I actually have a very short bolt for this in factory applications, but as you can tell, there's not a lot of factory application anywhere on this car.
All right, so last thing that we need to do is take out the engine mount bolts. I prefer to take out the horizontal bolts. Jeff likes to take out the vertical bolts that go into the engine. It's really to each their own. I prefer this way, so that's the way we're gonna do it. I'm just going to take the nuts off and leave the bolts in though. Then we're gonna drop the car down, put chains on it, lift the engine up a little bit to take pressure off, then slide the bolts out, and we'll be able to pick the engine up out of there. Nut off, that there, Grab the washer as well so there's nothing to hold the bolt up from sliding out. And the same process for the other side.
All right, so what we're gonna do now is we've got our bridge in here. We pulled the distributor out because it was just gonna be in the way and we were worried about busting it. So what we're gonna try to do is we're gonna take and do the top 2 bolts on the back of the engine for the bell housing.
Yep.
And I'm gonna try to pull 2 intake manifold bolts here and there on the front of the engine for this to keep this bridge as low as we possibly can get it.
Hold on, let me just fix the leak. Tilt her back a little bit.
I thought you were peeing.
I'm so excited.
All right, so I'm gonna try to get some bolts started back here. Gotta get it through there. I'm on the 3rd one, maybe?
I'm on 3 or 4 links.
I think I am too. Question is, can I find the hole? Okay.
Right.
Hey, the intake didn't break.
The day is still young.
And it also, oh yeah, I have a bad feeling when we go to pull this intake
I was
off.
gonna say we could probably pull all the bolts out and the RTV that's holding this. That shit,
They just put the brace
Like-
on the front of the engine.
like contact cement at this point. You go to swing it. Yeah.
Whoop!
All right,
That's one.
let's see if we can do that on this side.
Not gonna be any room to do that thing. This is one of those things where we couldn't really show you what was going on because there was just no room underneath the car or anywhere while we were trying to work on this for the crew to get in there and film. And what ended up happening is that the motor mount on the engine was modified, and so was the engine mount on the chassis down in the bottom. The hole on the chassis has been opened up, as you'll see here. And then what I'm putting up right now are the pictures of the passenger side motor mount and the driver's side motor mount. And you can see a huge difference. And what I think was happening is that the bolt was crosswise in there and it just wouldn't go. We managed to finally get a hammer on there, our big 4-pound sledge, and pop that out. Well, it's not big, but you know what I mean. Pop that out and then use a pry bar on the shock tower to pry the bolt the rest of the way out while we jiggled and moved the engine around. It was a nightmarish process. That's why you'll hear me scream in just a couple of seconds about getting it out. Well, not scream, like manly yell. I'm going to manly yell in just a second.
Victory.
Victory! Ah!
If I didn't like your walls, I would throw this.
I don't know. I'd probably pick it up and throw it again. See, if you'd have done the 4-bolt method like I told you.
This was way easier. I did this by myself with wood blocks on the 66.
Out of the marks. Release the docking clamps. Let's hope we've already done that. Hold. We're going to have regurts over here with the hoses. We are, the exhaust manifolds, we're going to have to come up and forward because the exhaust manifolds have a potential of running into these hoses.
Okay. We need to come.
We could probably roll it back now.
Huh?
We're leaning forward right now. Can we roll it back more?
Oh, yeah.
No, it's going the other way. Gotta go this way. I'm worried about those hoses, but if we can get enough altitude on it that way.
That's why I hate this thing. That's why I took it off.
Yes, it doesn't do what you want it to do. It does what it wants to do. I don't know, buddy. We got a long way to go and a short time to get there. Hold on. Let's pull it toward the car a little bit. Push it toward the car. Okay, that's about as much back as we're going to get.
I believe.
I believe you can lie.
Hey, we got the crank pulley over. That's enough. We can ram and force it out. No, we're good. We're good.
Ooh, it's in the air though. Great day. Stop.
That.
Stop right there. Okay, an inch is as good as a mile for me. All right, Cam.
Now the real fun part.
Slow and steady wins the race.
It's tracking.
You realize I'm running like a little girl if this thing falls.
Oh, I mean, I'm getting catapulted into the sky.
Okay, wait. That's far enough.
Yeah.
Drop her down slow.
I only know one speed.
Don't use it here.
Normally involves screaming.
Hey, where's the engine stand?
It's at Harbor Freight. It's kind of like the Kia from
What are you going to do with this thing then? Put on tires, I guess.
Stay here.
Just leave it on there.
Yeah.
I mean, we could just leave it on this, tighten that up, and set it on the ground.
Yeah,
Until I go get the thing from Harbor Freight. Because I got other things I got to get from Harbor Freight anyway.
of course.
Well, it's out.
Yes.
I can't believe we did this.
A little bit more pain than I was thinking it would be. But
Yeah, this was your idea.
The other motor mount was gouged out, whatever, and
That's
I'm
nasty.
blaming that.
It should have been easier with that big gargantuan hole they plowed in that thing.
You would think so, yeah.
I mean, golly, the motor mount's gouged out, the inside motor mount's gouged. We need to replace that one. Now I'm wondering if the shock towers are even level and even on this thing. No.
I just wondered if maybe because that shock tower is pulled in, that's why they had to beat the snot out of it to get the brake booster.
No, that brake booster's all wrong.
Yeah, it's wrong, but
That's bad.
yeah.
No, I think they beat the snot out of the shock tower to put the... Anyway. We could be here all day doing this, and I'm not gonna. Basically, that's it. You know how to pull an engine out of a 67 Mustang, and that still actually work 1965 all the way up to 73,
Yeah.
probably even Mustang 2s. But we don't know about that, so let's just say 1965 to 1970. Same thing with Falcons and all that, although Falcons are a little more ticklish because they have the shock tower thing, the braces that are in there permanently.
And you can't take those out.
Yes, you can't remove them. Well, we can, but
Only once.
you got to metal glue gun them back in. So I guess that's it for this week, folks. Do me a favor, go out and check out the Patreon account at the $10 a month level. You get monthly meetings with me, but realistically, what that money goes to is the fact that if we have helped you with anything at all on your classic car, restoration tips and stuff that we do around here, and you want to help us out a little bit, say a little bit more of a thanks than just watching the show, which is great, you can do that. And that also that money goes to help Andrew, help me pay him for the stuff he does. He comes in here 80s on the weekend, but also comes in here throughout the week and does all the other stuff. Also, subscribe to the channel. We're danger close. We're at 99,234. We're at 300. The guys behind the cameras are telling me we're at 99,300. So apparently they're watching this just as much as I am. Probably not quite as obsessively, but it sounds like it's pretty darn close. So subscribe. After this gets to 100,000, we're not going to be talking about that anymore. You'll see a little subscription thing that we're already kind of putting up at the front of the show. So pay attention to that and subscribe from there. Also, you know what we're going to talk about now, don't you? That's super thanks.
Oh, super
Oh,
thanks.
yeah. Super thanks. It's a way for you to thank us one time.
Super.
It's really super. Is a way for you to thank us one time for what we do to you, or for you, maybe to you around here. Because I've had guys say that you have caused me to do more things on my car, and I don't know if that's
Maybe you don't want to take those 2 bolts out, like I said.
Should have done the 4 bolts. See? Old gray hair pays off. Anyway, if we've done one thing for you, maybe put a super thanks in there. Just anything from $1 to $1 million. We will take the $1 million if we're willing to throw it at us. And then finally, folks, do me a favor. Be kind to each other, love on each other, treat each other nice. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time on Autorestomod. So, RTV'd intake manifold.
Yeah. Cobbled together exhaust manifolds.
We didn't talk about that weird distributor setup they had either.
Yeah, I think that's just a weird DUI setup. I've never seen it.
I've never seen one like that. I think they probably did that. Well, anyway, we're not going to talk about it here. We'll do a short on the distributor. If you guys got a DUI, you'll know what I'm talking about, but it was a little disconcerting to see it come out without a distributor gear.
Yes.
We were a little awed by that. Anyway, I guess that's it. We got it here. I got to go to Harbor Freight now and buy an engine stand. Another.
Merry Christmas.
We got like 5 million on that. We look like a NASCAR engine shop for engine stands, but none of them have anything cool on them except for the one with the CVF Racing setup on the front of it and the Win intake on it.
NASCAR engine team that just blows shit up every weekend. Two qualifying laps, blows their put it in the trailer.
Put it in the trailer. That's what we do around here. We'll see you guys later.